All right, we got Ty Wise back. I believe we're live on YouTube again. Waiting for Lippy to be back. See what's going on here. What a fucking wild night. I'm glad that didn't happen with Soldier Boy. I'm glad that didn't happen with anybody calling in. I believe we're back on. Yeah, no, it was good. And actually, this is crazy. I gotta go. Yeah. There was something happening on both ends. There was something happening on both ends of it. So no, yeah, I just killed that one, and then hopefully the one that I have up right now, um, people will start to see here. All right. Well, I wanted to wrap up with everyone. Um, I was hoping we get the opportunity to do that. I'm not sure if we will. It's too bad, man. It went really well. Luckily, we recorded a bunch out of Talk Shoe, and oh, look, it looks like we're back on live. I don't know how many participants we're gonna have, but at least we're up in here. We just make sure we're getting audio. Yeah, okay. We got audio out there. We're live, so at least we're back on. I'm not sure if we're gonna have a bunch of people in here. They probably won't see that we switched over, but at least we're back in here to wrap it up. If you guys are checking out this live or you're checking out this video after the fact, we appreciate you hanging in with us. He had some technical difficulties. If anybody wants to know what happened, I can't give you a real fucking answer. There's no real answer. It was a live show, is what happened. But at least it didn't happen with Soldier Boy or any of the callers, so I'm feeling good about that. Yeah, there is. It'll pop up. It's because I just ended one. It's gonna pop up and tell people that we're live. We already have one person that has jumped in, so I assume we'll start to see people jumping in here in just a second. Um, because it is now showing us, if you go to our videos, it's now showing us live. So, so there. Yeah. So it was a night. Again, I'm glad I'm glad it didn't happen with Soldier Boy. So
Throughout uh, the whole episode. So you did a great job, and it was a good. You guys had a really good rapport together, you and Soldier Boy. And it was great to hear all the people calling in, asking those questions, and it just everything was rolling smooth. The chat was live. There was just
yeah,
so much cool stuff going on all at one time.
yeah. The only thing that I can think of, I have a lot of tabs open and shit when to do this. I got talk show. I got YouTube. I got just tons of shit, going. Um, and for some reason,
You know,
uh, I'm not sure what the fuck happened, but for some reason it just like YouTube wouldn't go live, and for some reason OBS, which is what we do everything through, was giving me a real hard time. So I'm not sure what the fuck happened there, but whatever it was already happened, and at least we made it through it. We made it
well,
through another live.
here's my question for Ty. So this was your first time in the ring with the whole Beyond the Harmony fam. How did it go for you?
Yeah.
Man, this was really exciting. Hearing the fan interactions, being on this side of the fence, listening to Soldier Boy and Cecil go back and forth like they've known each other for 25 fucking years, which is crazy. They just talk to each other like they hang out every day. They have the best rapport. It was a lot of fun, man. I enjoyed every minute of it. Some of my favorite parts, I tell you, is hearing Soldier Boy telling the Crazy Bone stories. Um, Talking about how it was being around him when he's writing and being in the studio. I mean, imagine if you're like you're a basketball player, and they say, hey, we want you to go practice. We want you to go practice with fucking Michael Jordan. And because Crazy Bones, then notoriously he's one of the most talented ones in Bone. I mean, he's like kind of like the unofficial leader, right? And Soldier Boy says, yeah, he was comfortable with it because he knew Anthony in school and everything, and that's from a fan's point of view. It's just too cool to hear this side of it and to hear how their chemistry and everything was back then at that time. So this was awesome. It was a lot of fun. It was a great treat. The guy from UK, his
Yeah,
call and his
yeah.
question,
That made my
man,
day. That made
ki-
my day. The
killed it.
international callers. I hope we get more of them. I hope we get more international calls. Um, I think there was some confusion too. A lot of people thought that the U.S. number was the only situation, but if you're listening to this after and in the future you want to call in, there is a list of international numbers so that you're not making an international call. So I hope people decide to check that out as well. Could you post me the link to YouTube? What are you looking for, John? The
To
link
our
to.
YouTube channel, because I'm not able to find the YouTube live stream, and I'd like, if there's people in the chat, I want to make sure that I'm answering any questions they got.
Yeah, I
'Cause I
can't see
don't,
it either.
yeah, it doesn't
Oh,
appear live on my stream.
okay. I wonder. Let me try that. Let me try that. Let me try this. I just redid it. See if it might take a second, but I think it should pop up now. And hopefully people will start to see it coming in. Let me know if you guys see it. Live, man. A lot of hurdles. I can't stress it enough. We take a lot of time trying to iron out all the wrinkles and not just these live shows, but just like, all the wrinkles of doing the show. And you just never know. Unfortunately, technology. I'm going to stress again, this is why Super Chat is so important because what you guys put into this show, we turn around and put into the show. And hopefully over time here, we'll be able to do some really large upgrades and make sure that shit like this doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, it's 9 o'clock. Do you guys want when do you guys want to discuss that spreadsheet thing that I came up with? I mean, we could do it next week. We could
Yeah,
do
I'm
it if
thinking
you don't
I'm
think it's a long combo.
I'm thinking next Tuesday is a good time. We'll all jump on and we'll talk about that. I don't want to give too much away in here in case anybody's in here, checking it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think next Tuesday, and then we drop that next week. That's going to be a really good conversation, I think, for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that works for me too. And John, you're talking about the thing that me and you were talking about the other day.
Yeah. Because you,
Okay.
myself, and Cecil, we need to iron that out and figure out,
Yeah,
just discuss it, and then even offer to get some
some
input
tweaks.
about the same stuff. Yeah, to tweak it, and then just create the master. Again, we're keeping it under wraps here, but
Yeah,
just the master and that we all agree upon based on the
no doubt,
criteria. So
no
I
doubt.
think
I think
that
that's gonna
I
be
think it'll be a
hot.
big deal, like something that gets people thinking. Because I don't
Oh
think
yeah,
people.
oh most definitely. Because there's a couple of things that will be controversial. Because I had a raised eyebrow as I was skimming it, and so I think it's gonna create some great debate.
Awesome.
Which is what this is all about. Some friendly banter. I love hearing people's point of views and different perspectives on things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's good. And John had told me. John said John made a suggestion that I guess that you made, and I was like, "Pff, I'm ready to bully you guys both. So I'm ready for the talk. I think it's gonna be good. I see some people jumping in now, so I think the live is finally caught up. I don't know if we're gonna get as many as we had, but I appreciate everybody that's jumping in, wrapping up the evening with us. We do apologize about the disconnect and getting back on. Not not really sure what happened, but we didn't feel right just ending it with you guys. We did not feel right just cutting it off and ending it. So, we had to get back on, and I see a bunch of you getting back in. So I appreciate that. Before we got completely disconnected, and I don't think the fans heard this, but we had a caller that called in, and they asked a bunch of questions. And one of the big questions that they had at the end was about Flesh and Bone. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the question was. Why didn't Flesh and Bone end up on Ruthless? Like he understood that there might have been I think he said jail time. Is that right? Is that what he thought?
Well, he had the same question that you had, and I believe you asked it to Bobby Jones in the Bobby Jones interview, and it was a question that you and I had for years, and we've always wondered why Fleshbone was not on Ruthless and why he ended up on Def Jam.
Yeah.
And and so I don't even remember Bobby's answer at this, but I remember he answered it and he explained it like thoroughly.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it is?
Yeah, I've had quite a few people explain this to me. I've had Romeo, I've had Bobby Jones, I've had quite a few people, and actually Bone themselves have explained it in an older interview. So the way that this goes is Flesh was actually an all-star athlete. He played basketball. And if you guys remember, Flesh and Bone actually ended up out there before the rest of Bone. And he was out there in college. He was actually playing ball. So, you guys read when there's certain things that I've read, and people say, I guess that he was in jail, or he was like wilding out, smoking sherm. All that is crazy shit. He was actually playing ball in college. Bone was getting the deal. He was helping them follow that. It didn't work out. I do believe that he did like some jail time, but I don't
Well,
think it
regarding
was.
I could fill in the basketball one because I read it last night in that Busy Bone autobiography. He said that
Muted.
Flesh had a partial scholarship to a college, and that
Unmuted.
the scholarship wasn't enough to cover the whole thing, and he was doing everything he could to keep it going, but then he just couldn't afford to stay in college. And I seen that happen because I remember when I was in college, we had these different like grants and partial scholarships, and I had a lot of friends that had to drop because they just couldn't cover it. And so that's what happened there as far as that goes. Then, and that's why, and like Lazy and all them were trying to help, like send Flesh money, and that's why also Flesh was trying to help them with the Greyhound bus tickets and all that.
Yeah.
So that's the deal there. He was good enough to get a scholarship. It was a partial one, though, so it didn't give him a full ride.
Yeah, so my understanding is at the time of the signing, he was actually more concerned with, playing ball. That didn't work out. Now this is kind of where I believe that it gets a little, I guess, shaky, which is just why he didn't get signed in the aftermath. To get that answer, I think we're gonna have to dig a little bit deeper than Bobby Jones or anybody. But my feeling behind it is Ruthless already had kind of what they needed, which was the four of them. Uh, you didn't necessarily need the fifth one because you were gonna keep getting him anyway. So they were almost getting Flesh and Bone without having him signed, and I mean them meaning Ruthless. So it wasn't needed. Now that changed significantly when he went to Def Jam. I believe Lazy is who helped get him with Def Jam, but his manager at the time, and his name is slipping my mind, but his manager at the time is actually who got Flesh and Bone. He finished that deal out with him at Def Jam, but more importantly, he's who got him his publishing deal. Now it worked out better for Flesh and Bone because Flesh and Bone ended up with a really good publishing deal. In fact, in that time frame, that 95, 96 time frame, I think he had the best publishing deal of them all, and it ended up retaining, a lot of his publishing in comparison to Bone, who I think a lot of their publishing got sold off. So it was actually a blessing. Where it became tough was once he got signed to Def Jam. Now it wasn't just them throwing Flesh and Bone on like they did on Creeping on a Come Up. On Creeping on a Come Up, you just put him on the songs. He was an independent entity. Now you got to pay him as a separate artist. okay, a Def Jam artist. And we saw that become, probably the biggest time that I think that was a problem was during the Art of War. And if you remember, on the Art of War, he was credited as a featured guest all the time. So why he ended up at Def Jam over Ruthless, I think Ruthless just didn't. I mean, it sounds fucked up, but I don't think they needed him. They really had what they needed, and Def Jam was, I mean, that was like the hub to be at. If he wasn't going to be with Bone and them, I can't think of a better place for him. Did it work out the way that it should have? I mean, I think that's debatable, but I do think that Flesh had a pretty big impact at that time, considering he was on his own on, a completely separate label.
Well, and I remember too that Bobby kind of was alluding to that Def Jam was trying to kind of cash in on the success of the Crossroads
Oh yeah.
with the World So Cruel. So, and not only that,
Muted.
if we go back to when Def Jam signed Warren G, that Russell Simmons said that Warren G saved Def Jam. So they saw the benefits of going outside their region of New York and signing
Unmuted.
hot artists that were kind of affiliated. Like Warren G wasn't Snoop Dogg and Death Row, but he was good enough. And Fleshbone wasn't. Well, he's part of the Five True Thugs, but he was kind of like it was a piece of that magic. So Warren G was a piece of that Death Row magic, but he wasn't quite part of Death Row. And
Yeah.
Fleshbone was a part of that Bone Ruthless, but he wasn't quite part of Ruthless. So Def Jam capitalized twice and handsomely on both of those.
And one thing I always wondered, because don't even get me started on how great I thought Flesh and Bones' first solo album was, but I wondered, Flesh and Bone got signed to Def Jam. Comes out with an album, does awesome, goes gold, it's at the top of the charts. But what was his record deal exactly? Was it just one album? Because he never made another album under Def Jam.
Yeah, I believe
And
I believe it was one album. I actually
you
have
know,
his agent as somebody I'm trying to reach and have be on the show. His agent at the time, and yeah, I believe it was one album. It's like John said, you got to think of the time frame that he was signed. The Crossroads remix was fucking huge, So you have this member who's not really a member, but is a member. He's at least not really a member to record labels, right? But to us as fans,
yeah,
he's absolutely a member. So if you're Def Jam, you just got this rogue independent artist out here connected to Bone. Let's cash in on this. And this is a video that I've been working on a little bit with John. But if you think of the World So Cruel video, this is directly trying to cash in on the Crossroads. And if you guys haven't checked out our Bobby Jones video, you really want to check out the Bobby Jones video because Bobby talks about the origins of the World So Cruel beat, the Crossroads. He really covers a lot of this. So I think that's a real big mystery. And that may be one of the mysteries that we really got to tackle this season is just that time frame of the THUGS album by Flesh, his time with Def Jam. And I think the other thing too is like you said, was it a one album and then it was just over? Or what was the reason for the departure from Def Jam? I wonder if that was a Flesh thing or a Def Jam thing.
yeah, because you think with the success that album had, and that coming in between or releasing in between Eternal and the Art of War, you think they'd want to re-up on that, and try to capitalize on a second album.
Yeah.
Because in that time frame, Bone was hot, 95, 96, 97. I mean, that's, Eternal, Mo Thugs, Flesh, and then Art of War is back to back to back. There's a lot of good stuff going on
Yeah.
for them at that time.
No, I agree.
No,
That was an exciting time.
and maybe the Mo Thugs emerging also might have been part of it. I think Flesh probably recorded
Muted.
with Def Jam, even though the albums came out very close, the THUGS as well as the Mo Thug Family Scriptures, they released simultaneously.
Unmuted.
But it's possible that Flesh worked on his a little bit earlier because Def Jam, they're going to release things on a schedule. And then once Mo Thugs emerged and all the different, Bone started realizing their business situation wasn't so hot, and then they did their Mo Thug thing. Maybe Flesh just kind of joined on with Mo Thugs. Although, what was it? Koch that put out Fifth Dog Let Loose?
Yeah,
Yes,
that
it
was
was Koch.
yeah, that was Koch. But what's interesting that you just said was the Mo Thugs thing. I mean, I believe all the solos fell, or the first bunch of solos anyway, all fell under the Mo Thugs banner. I'm pretty sure Flesh and Bones was a partial Mo Thugs release. Crazy
Yeah, it
Bones
was.
first one, no that yeah, Crazy Bones first one. Did that have Mo Thug on it as well, even though it was Thug Line? I know
I know
Heaven's
Flesh
Movie
and
did.
Bone did for sure.
Heaven's Movie did, and I'm fairly certain Lazy Bones did as well. I'm gonna have to look at my Thug Mentality, but I think that might have had the Mo Thug logo on it as well. Um, so it makes me wonder too, even though we saw the obvious Def Jam, influence as far as having like Reverend Run on the album and shit like that. I wonder how much of it was Def Jam and really how much of it was independent, just Mo Thug, and then it was turned over to Def Jam because we also had a lot of, Mo Thug regulars. You had Bobby Jones, working on that project. Bobby Jones is who helped hook up the Damien Elliott situation. Romeo was part of that as well. So it seems like it was really a Mo Thugs project that maybe just got turned over to Def Jam at the end of the day, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Muted.
and also keep in mind, based on what Bobby Jones was saying, how he
Unmuted.
actually went out to dinner with Russell Simmons. Russell really wanted a piece of the Bone action, and Run is Joseph Simmons, Russell Simmons' brother. So Russell made sure to get his brother in on Bone at the beginning
Yeah.
because he saw the potential in the future there. So it's nice that the brothers, like literal brothers, blood brothers, were looking out for each other, and got Reverend Run on that track with Flesh. And I think, didn't he say that Crazy Bone originally was on that song? World So
Yeah,
Cruel.
well, Bobby Jones, yeah. So Bobby Jones said that originally World So Cruel, that instrumental, that is the original Crossroads remix. And then it didn't get used, and then Unique remixed it to the remix that we know as the Crossroads remix. But originally, the World So Cruel beat was going to be the Crossroads remix. Um, but it didn't get used, and then so he used it for Flesh, and Flesh had Crazy on it, but Ruthless wasn't going to let that happen. They weren't going to let Def Jam cash in on a Crossroads Part 2 over at, for them. So they took them on it. Reverend Run ended up on it. But if you look at that video, that World So Cruel video, there's a lot of Crossroads influence there. A lot. I'll just point out too, Albert in the chat, Mendez said that Crazy's first album did have the Mo Thug logo on it as well. I told you that a lot of those albums were falling under that Mo Thug banner, even though all those solos happened, with other companies as well. They were all somehow still falling under Mo Thug. That's another mystery that I've always kind of want to dig out, and we've never really got a clear-cut answer as to why they were allowed to do Mo Thugs and just Ruthless had such little control. Fans believe that Ruthless had a lot of control over the Mo Thug situation, but countless times from Romeo, from a lot of different people, I've heard they had nothing. And that's so that boggles my fucking mind how they had such little control over that situation, but so much control over Bone.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Have you seen the interview with Crazy Bone when he's being asked? It's on YouTube. He's being asked about his relations with Mo Thugs and kind of like what happened. And he mentions in that interview that he never saw any money from it. He's never been cut a single check
Yeah,
for anything that he wrote on it,
I believe
for
that.
anything that was produced. And he mentions it emphatically over and over. He was like, I haven't seen a fucking check, not at $1 from Mo Thugs. You can check the records, and I can't remember who it was on. I'll post it in the chat when I find it. But Crazy Bone mentions it several times, and so it kind of ties the story together as to why he kind of seemed to fizzle out from the Mo Thugs project.
I think that's probably if you're Crazy Bone, if you're one of the members of Bone, That's probably always had to been the most frustrating thing about the complaints from former Mo Thugs is that, they didn't get paid because, you're Crazy Bone and you're like, I didn't get fucking paid. You guys are mad that you didn't get paid. We didn't get paid either. Like nobody got paid. Not Bone, not Mo Thug. Nobody got paid. The only guys that got paid were some probably rich, white dudes sitting in an office somewhere. They probably got paid real nice. Um, so it is the Mo Thug situation is so unfortunate. It's really unfortunate, and it is unfortunate now too that I feel that we won't see the true reunion. And what I mean by that is the reunion with Bone. I think it's great. Soldier Boy, Archie, Too True, Mo Hart, Sin. He said Gates tonight, which was news to me. Gates going to be involved with this originals reunion, but it is unfortunate that we won't get that Bone. That Bone sound still was a lot of the Mo Thug sound.
But you know how we will get it is if
Muted.
it's successful. If Mo Thugs or they're calling themselves the originals, if their song is successful and we make the fans support it
Unmuted.
and it gets big and it catches Bone catches wind of it, which doesn't seem too hard to get their attention. I think maybe then they'd say, hey, let's all connect up and do it one more time, or maybe a couple more times. I think they're waiting to see if these guys can do it on their own,
Yeah.
and if the Mo Thugs originals
Yeah.
can pull it off somehow and have relative success with it in this day and age of the music industry, how it goes, I think then Bone might get interested.
I think so as well, because there was a point in time where I think a lot of people thought we'd never see Busy Bone back in the group ever, with some of the things
Yeah.
that he was doing
I agree.
publicly, and oh my god, just a litany of stories, and man, he's done a complete turnaround of his life, right? Compared to the crazy videos we would see when YouTube was first evolving in the early mid 2000s. Busy Bone did not have the best image on YouTube for the longest time. um and I thought to myself, there's no way I'll ever see Busy Bone again, with Bone. And he came around. So I think maybe if they do the project right, release an awesome EP or something like that, and shows that they're serious and they're really dedicated into taking time out of their personal lives to try this one more time. I think we could see. I think we could definitely see. If anything, maybe they could, do a couple of shows with Bone here and there. Opening acts, things like that, because Bone, they do take their affiliates with them, their current affiliates with them. So, could you imagine a Mo Thug slash Bone show, in this modern era?
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
the
and
big
it
thing that's being missed is the money. The money that you would get from a show, from the show.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
it'd be
here's a
huge.
question
Muted.
that I never hear anybody talk about is, most of the time we hear about people going to Bone shows and whether it was 4 guys or 5 guys, but I haven't heard anybody talk about seeing Mo Thugs with them. Like, I'd like
Unmuted.
to hear some Mo Thug stories about Mo Thug Live
Yeah,
opening for Bone, how how they were and what the set was like and who was performing, because there's a lot of different guys. Was it Gravy? Was it all of them? Was there ever like a total Mo Thug concert with Bone where and who was the first act and who was the act right before Bone? Like who had the most juice to be the group that opens for Bone? You know what I mean? Who was the undercard? Who was the big card? Like what was the hierarchy kind
I
of thing?
can't remember who we were talking to. Maybe Mo Hart. But they kind of talked about it. And they didn't do a lot of songs. It sounds like, you know what I mean. It didn't sound like Too True was going out there and doing 20 minutes. I think they were doing like 2 songs. Shit like that. But a lot of touring. But I would love to hear people's, you know, Mo Thug live stories. I wish there was footage of that too. It's unfortunate that all this happened back before everything gets recorded now. Everything gets recorded. You go to a concert, everybody's got their fucking cell phone in the sky. So we would see so much of it was today, but so much of that got lost. Real quick, I see people saying that it sounds like I need some Robitussin. I am sick as fuck. I had
Me
to I had to move some interviews around. I honestly was like dead on my feet to do this. I worked all day outside, and yeah, I'm sick as fuck coming off the flu. Lippy had it last week, and yeah, it is crazy. I am sick as hell, but I am still here. I see people in the chat room. This is crazy that the chat room is filled back up. Shout out to all you guys jumping back in. I see a lot of people talking about Kaz, the situation with Kaz. This is what I can 1,000 billion trillion fucking endlessly tell you guys. You ready? Kaz doesn't own Mo Thug Records. Now, I don't know what the story is that Lazy and Kaz, I know there's a story that Lazy sold Kaz Mo Thug Records, blah, blah, blah. Now, maybe Mo Thug, as far as like how Lazy feels about it being the crew, maybe he gave that to Kaz. I don't know. I wasn't there. I've never heard Lazy Bone say it wasn't true. I've heard Kaz say it's true. Whatever. But what we 1,000,000% know is that Sony owned Mo Thug. Relativity. The only people that own Mo Thugs is still Sony Relativity, whoever the parent of that is now. I think it's somebody else now. But that's who owns Mo Thug. That is why you don't see a lot of the old Mo Thug records on streaming services. Because that company just doesn't, I mean, it really boils down to they don't give a shit about putting it out. There's a lot of debt from Mo Thug Records, a lot of fucking debt, so much debt. The idea that somebody would even actually want to own Mo Thug Records is probably like, that's probably a crazy thought in itself because you would take on so much debt. There's a lot of debt there, but nobody owns it. Lazy Bone doesn't own it. Big Kaz certainly doesn't own it. As far as it is on paper, who owns it? You know that Lazy Bones Mo Thug forever. I still see people that claim Mo Thug all the time. And in the respects of what Mo Thug has always been and represented, I mean, Mo Thug is going to be forever and ever and ever. But on paper, Sony Relativity owns that motherfucker, not Big Kaz. I hope that helped answer the questions in the chat room. I see a bunch.
And that's also, I was
check-
going to say, that's also probably why we might not see Thug Mentality 1999 anytime soon on streaming services as well, because that's underneath the Relativity brand.
Heaven's Movie. It's the same situation. It's why you don't see Heaven's Movie. I think it's why you don't see Thug on the Line as well.
Muted.
Sucks, because that's one, it's Crazy Bone's biggest album. Thug Mentality is supposed to be the best solo, and
Unmuted.
you have to own it to listen to it.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
It's even.
Oh, also,
yeah. Go ahead.
No, you got it because I had a transition.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, you don't see any of those records. I think that and I don't think it's that Sony Relativity or whoever the parent is now is trying to stop that. I really think, good question, Albert. They had not gone for bankruptcy yet. They went to bankruptcy court, and Sony basically ended up maintaining everything. It had not gone bankrupt by the time they put the movement out on Koch. Good question. Yeah, they just hadn't got to that part yet. So by the time they got to court and everything got wrapped up, Sony ended up owning that, and that's why you saw that was the last fucking release over there. Boom! Little something for you, brother. I don't remember where I was going, but I don't think it's a matter of, this company is trying to stop those albums from coming out. Mo Thug 1, 2, fucking Heaven's Movie, Thug Mentality. I think a parent company purchased all these things and they just don't even know the arsenal. They don't even know they have it. I think it's why Lazy Bone was able to release the greatest hits, and that's currently the only digital release that we have on there of Mo Thugs is the greatest hits, and I think that's why he was able to do that so easily. Because it's no secret. Bone themselves will tell you they don't own those songs. They don't get paid from them. They should. That's why I'm glad Lazy put it out, but they don't. So I hope that answered everybody's questions there. I see the chat is still blowing up. I think I'm good.
Terez wanted us to speak on what, like a hypothetical, what would have been with Ruthless, Bone, NWA if Eazy-E never passed. And I think it probably would have gone the same, because eventually Bone was going to figure out that they weren't in the best contracts in the world. And so it probably would have gotten, although I guess Easy would have kept them happy. Easy would have found a way
I
to
think
make
Easy.
good.
Yeah.
The reason why that went bad, I think, is because the passing of Easy, and people shit on Tamika Wright. Like, Tamika Wright was trying to fuck over Bone so hard. I know that they kind of felt like that at that time, but Tamika Wright filled some big shoes that she didn't know much about, and I think that she just kept running with it. She was like, "Well, this is what your contract is." Now, if Easy was still alive, I think that by the time they would have blown up to the level that they were at, I think that he would have adjusted and said, "Okay, you guys earned your spot," and adjusted for them. The interesting thing to think of is the crossroads is absolutely why we can attribute the level of success that we can to Bone Thugs and Harmony. The crossroads is firmly based around, at least the remix, it's firmly based around Eazy-E. If Eazy-E never would have died, would Bone even have become the superstars that they became? Because take the crossroads out of the resume, we have some great songs. First of the Month is a great song. It was supposed to be the big single, but it wasn't the crossroads level. So if we take the crossroads, the remix out, would they have even reached the superstardom that they are at? Or was it required for Eazy-E to pass away for us to get to the level that we're at? So that's kind of more the question that I would ask everybody, is if Eazy-E never passed away, would have Bone even have got to the relevant level that they're at? Because I have no doubts that they would have been huge even without that song. But this is, you guys got to think of the level of the crossroads. We're talking Michael Jackson and the Beatles numbers. That's not normal shit. Would they have been able to do that without that song?
The same goes with Tupac dying and Biggie Smalls, that with Puff Daddy, with Bad Boy.
John, you still with us? I think
They
we
have
lost.
gotten.
Oh, I see John popping back in. I think we were cutting out. Ty, you with me?
Yo, I'm still here.
All right, Johnny, you were cutting in and out, brother. So,
But yeah, you're right, John. Who knows what
It's like
would have
Snoop
happened?
Dogg. Snoop is still alive, and Snoop should be remembered as a legend, but everyone's so used to Snoop now. It's just like, oh yeah, Snoop Dogg made another album. What do you know? Nobody really cares. But you remember how amazed we were with Snoop Dogg in the '90s? It was like, oh my God, Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre. And now we're just like, nah. And even if Dr. Dre came out with an album, people would be like, huh, hey, Dr. Dre, what do you know?
Yeah, you want to talk about missing a bus, but Dr. Dre has his hands in producing and other areas. But once upon a time, if he had made another album, I mean, people would be lined up around the block, down the street to pick up a Dr. Dre album, because they were so far and in between. As many years as we had to wait to hear a second one, a
yeah.
third, which never.
Therese wants to know what we think more so the vision of Ruthless was, since he had PG Knockout, Bone, was hooking back up with NWA. I don't think the NWA reunion was going to work out. Ice Cube, no matter how cool they were at the end, no matter how things were worked out, Ice Cube at that point had seen the power of being Ice Cube, and even if he was on a good place, I think that Ice Cube was hell bent on being Ice Cube for a while. So I don't know if the NWA reunion would have worked out. If Eazy-E would have stayed alive, he was kind of a pioneer. I think he would have drafted some really amazing artists.
Well, and think about this too. Even when Ice Cube and Dr. Dre got together for Helter Skelter, what was the name of the song? Natural Born Killer.
Yeah.
They were supposed to make a whole album together. Like Dre and Cube were the original Busy and Crazy. Everybody wanted Ice Cube and Dr. Dre to make an album together. It was supposed to be called Helter Skelter. They did make Natural Born Killers, but it stopped there. And then Dre did Ring Ding Dong for the Friday soundtrack, and
Right.
Keep Your Heads Ringing. And
Love that
so
song.
yeah, and so it right there, and not only that, Dre and Cube were kind of like business peers at that point. So it's not like one guy didn't want to waste time on the other guy. They were peers at that point. Dre didn't do Dr. Dre Beats by Dre the Apple thing yet. So even that couldn't get off the ground. And NWA tried doing a reunion when the Up in Smoke tour happened. They had MC Ren, and I think they put Snoop in to fill in for Eazy-E. And Snoop actually was a bigger star than Eazy-E was, and even that didn't happen. They made the song Hello, and they made another track, but for whatever the reason is, NWA just can't get it back together. I think you need Eazy-E. NWA without Eazy-E is not that fun.
I
Yeah.
DOC can't talk.
I really like the I enjoyed that reunion that they did with Snoop Dogg. I felt like if they were gonna do one, that was like the best fit. I know people were kind of pissed off that Snoop was in it, but I thought that was a good, he was a good to throw in there. I guess like other fair options are like Little Easy and shit, but like that's just like reunion stuff, do you want to hear a new NWA record in 2019? Like, does anybody want to hear that? Maybe like a song, but I don't want to hear a whole NWA album from Dre and
And,
Cube.
and the other part to it as well is I think maybe from some of their angles is, well, you want to hear the new NWA? It's called Death Row. It's like Death Row is the new NWA. NWA is the past. We got Death Row Records. This is like the real NWA right here. And
Yeah.
but I guess once Death Row dematerialized, that's when people started wanting something like an NWA reunion. And they did make all those like NWA legacy NWA. There was like a bunch of Eazy-E legacy albums and a bunch of NWA legacy albums. And even those, I guess maybe and all those people did that tribute NWA album. Like there was rappers and even Bone, they did Fuck the Police, and a bunch of other famous rappers remade the NWA song. So
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
it's a good idea, but it's a good in theory, but in practice, it had its time.
Yeah. Do either of you guys remember the Bad Boy reunion
Oh,
that
yeah.
happened just a couple years ago?
Oh yeah.
That shit did real good, man. Looked like I was looking up some of their numbers and their concert attendance, and man, they brought in several $1 million and 10 to 15, 20,000 people per stadium, and had some canceled shows, but done right, with all the artists on board. I mean, they had everybody: Faith Evans, The Locks. I love Jada Kiss and everybody. She Luch and The Locks, Styles P, Carl Thomas, 112. I mean, they killed it. They did it right. I'm sure there was a lot of planning because Puffy's, hate it or love it, Puff Daddy is, he's a mastermind when it comes to putting music together and putting the tour together like that. So
It's
done
the
right.
nostalgia, that nostalgia moment, and that's why the Mo Thug reunion could work even in today's market. Would it be a long-term thing for Bone to sign on the original Mo Thugs and try to make another run with them? I don't think that's like a realistic thought. Maybe like a reunion album, a reunion tour. In the long term, it's the same for Puffy. Taking these guys back, that door is already shut. But the nostalgia, somebody had spoke about it earlier on the show. The call we had from the UK, you know, we all want that golden era back. So I think if we could get the golden era Mo Thug, is it going to do those bad boy numbers? I mean, who the fuck knows? The Bone world is really big. We were bringing Puffy. I saw somebody on the BT&H board, and they were talking about the Angels with Dirty Faces track. You guys are both familiar with that, Puffy and Busy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Busy
Yeah,
Bone.
definitely.
So
Was that on the Blade soundtrack? No,
that was on Puffy's
It
album.
was on Puffy's album.
Puffy's album. Yeah.
And I read, I think it was So Crazy. Is that Jimmy Falkenberg, is that his real name? So crazy. He had said that that was a track that Puffy owned, I believe, and he just threw his shit on it. Like Busy didn't record it specifically for that album. Uh,
Oh
and
wow.
and I thought that was a crazy thought. Just what we had that coming up, but I thought that song was really good. But I guess a lot of fans, when I was reading the thread, it seemed like a lot of fans weren't really feeling it. But I thought that was a great track.
Yeah, and let me say this real quick because I don't want people to think I was dissing NWA. I was a hardcore NWA fan. I had the DOC album. I had NWA and the Posse, Straight Outta Compton, the one that came after that, as well as 100 Miles and Running. And so, and I know the whole family tree of NWA, but a lot of them went to death row. That's all I'm saying is that a lot, the DOC lost his voice. So, I bought the DOC album after he lost his voice. It just wasn't the same as No One Could Do It Better. I
Oh,
didn't get the third
facts.
album by DOC. But I'm a hardcore Ruthless Records fan. I was with Ruthless before Bone Thugs and Harmony. I learned about Bone Thugs and Harmony because I was an Eazy-E fan. Uh, Albert in the chat can vouch because he's seen my bedroom. I had an Eazy-E shrine, an entire wall of all Eazy-E stuff. Like probably the same things you guys had with Bone Thugs and Harmony. I had a whole wall of Eazy-E right on top of my keyboard. So when I would play keyboard, I would look up at all my Eazy-E pictures and see that. So yeah, no, I always wanted an NWA reunion, but like now that I'm older, looking back on this and assessing the whole picture from the outside looking in and seeing the attempts at it, because you do like a test market before you go big, and so they test marketed it with Chin Check, they test marketed it with Hello, and then all those tribute albums, they tried it over and over again. Now to your point, Straight Outta Compton, the movie was a humongous success.
Yeah.
So there still is a demand for NWA, and I just I just can't imagine Cube. Well, Cube keeps putting out albums, so and MC Ren keeps putting out albums. So that's the thing is like you could still hear these guys. You could still hear Cube. You could still hear Ren. They just did a song together, and they've done songs together periodically throughout the years. So if you take all those songs they made together, you could make your own NWA album. There's enough tracks now that you can make it. You include Natural Born Killers and all the new ones that Ren did with Cube.
Yeah.
Make your own NWA mixtape.
I I love the chat. The chat is blowing up. I see a lot of you still weighing in on this. Albert says John is who turned me on to Ruthless. Yeah, John has turned a lot of us on to a lot of music over the years. Uh, who the fuck knows if I would have stayed with Bone the way I did if it wasn't for John. Um,
Hey, quick trivia for everybody in the chat, as well as Albert, because he may not even remember this. So you guys see Albert in the chat.
Muted.
Albert and I go way back to first grade, but I was with Albert the day
Unmuted.
Tupac died. So the day it was announced that Tupac was dead, not when he got shot, but on the 13th, we were getting out of high school, and Albert used to give me a ride home from school, and the news came, and we were just like, no way, there's no way Tupac died. Like this guy's invincible, he can't die, he's the thug immortal. And we rode all around our city, and we played All Eyes on Me, Me Against the World. I don't know if we played the second album. I think we played Thug Life. I don't know if we played Tupacalypse Now, but we certainly played. And Machiavelli didn't come out yet, like because that. So just so that's a little bit. That's how much history I have with Albert in the chat. Is that we even were together when Tupac died. So I know everybody remembers where they were. I remember where I was. I was with Albert, and we poured it out for Tupac. It's kind of it's a sad memory, but it's a good memory that I shared it with him. We played some. I know we used to always play Thug Devotion on the drive home from school, and Mo Murder, and Low Down Dirty Shame with Soldier Boy. Those are the tracks
Muted.
we used to listen to on the drive home, and then we'd pump in Cypress Hill and MC8.
Unmuted.
MC8, a lot of MC8, and I got 5 on it. The Loonies. Did the Loonies ever do a track with Bone? Like, did Yuck Mouth ever do a track with anybody, like Lazy Bone or Busy Bone?
I thought Yuckmouth did, right, with like Lazy Bone or something.
No Tie.
Yeah,
I
Thug
don't
Lords.
recall.
Yeah, Thug Lords, and it had Sibo in it, and it had Lazy Bone and Yuckmouth, and then I also think Lazy Bone had him on that Cleveland thing. I think they've done a few things. If you guys in the chat know for sure, drop that in the chat. But yeah, I'm pretty sure quite a few fucking things have actually happened there.
Therese asked a good question. He said, "Why do you guys think Dre never really mentioned Bone or worked with him?"
Mm.
There's the picture of busy Steve LaBelle and Dr. Dre, but that's a good question. Like, why did he never reach out to Eazy's best guys?
That is good. I don't know.
That's a good question.
That would have been good too to
I guess
hear Boning like Dre.
one thing you might be able to consider is maybe their relationship at the time. Easy's relationship and Dr. Dre's relationship, that is, at the time when Bone was blowing up. What kind of terms were they on at that time, and speaking terms as far as wanting to collaborate or anything like that.
Well, because you figure Ice Cube broke the ice, though, right? So Ice Cube made "Till We Rich" with Crazy Bone.
Yeah.
So that olive branch was there. Not only that, Yella did "For the Love of Money." So, like, I understand the beef between the Dog Pound and Bone. See, like, we put Bone on this high
Muted.
pedestal, but if you look at it from Dre and Cube's perspective, Bone is the little guys. They're like the immortals for Tupac. They were the real NWA. Bone was the group that came after. So for them, it's like, oh yeah, the little guys that Eazy-E signed. Yeah, we're
Unmuted.
NWA. I'm working with Eminem now. No time for that. I think maybe that's why. And here's the reason why, actually. And this, I've heard this from a lot of different people. This is on that Dr. Dre that documentary that's out with him and the other guy. It's called the Disruptors or something. What it is that Dr. Dre likes to break new artists. He doesn't want to do artists that have a history. He likes to break new artists. And so if you look at it, he broke Snoop Dogg in, he broke DOC in, he broke Eminem in, 50 Cent to a certain extent. So Dre wants to break and JJ Fad, if you go that far back. So Dre wants to break the new artists. Yeah. So he wants to break new artists. He doesn't want to waste his time on artists that are already established. That's just not his thing. And I guess it's for Koch Records. Koch Records likes taking the artists that are already established, but that's not Dre's thing. So I think that's why I think Dre likes to break the fresh meat. He doesn't bring the guys that have already established.
Yeah, Dr. Dre also does a good job at molding brand new artists, because Eminem, when he first came out, I don't know if anyone saw this type of potential, from his first album. I mean, he was great, he was good, but longevity wise and the lyrical genius that he became as time went on, I felt like that was Dr. Dre potion working on Eminem as the years and the albums went by, because I felt like he evolved album to album just incredibly. Whereas you have an artist that already is kind of set in their ways and already has a reputation built, it might be a little harder to make that big splash in the pan like you could with a fresh artist, like he did with several artists like Eminem.
Yeah. Speaking of that, one of the questions we got to ask the Mizza when we finally have him on is, what did Dr. Dre tell him? They made a deal where Dre called it the Mizza because the Mizza was running 106, and he wanted the Mizza to break Eminem, and the Mizza said, "Well, I'll do it, but you got to tell me the entire story of NWA from beginning to end." And so I want to, hopefully we can find out what, a little piece of what Dre told the Mizza. So be on the lookout for that interview when that happens.
Yep. Coming up, season 2. Season 2, we're off with a bang. We have already had Cairo Wolf, Sin, and there's more of Sin to drop. Souljah Boy live tonight. I'm glad everybody got a chance to call in and do their thing. We got some big ones coming up. I said it before, but we got Diego Black. We got a Diego Black interview coming up next week. If you guys want to have your questions in there, make sure you hit the community tab on YouTube, or you check out BT&H board, and make sure you drop your questions. Diego Black was Bone's management during Bone Enterprise, and he is who put Bone and Eazy-E in a room together in the flesh for the first time ever. So he is an important part of the situation. So make sure you guys get your questions in for that. It's going to be a big season. It's been a big night. Your boy Cecil West is worn out. I have been frantically fucking fixing this thing and jumping in and out and making sure everything works. We had a big interruption, but things went well. The chat rebounded. I think I'm good. Is this
Yeah,
Thug Tuesday for the
I have
night?
It is. I just have a piece of parting information to go away with,
Here we
and
go.
this is
Another
a
20
frequently
minutes.
asked. No, it's gonna be short, and I know you got to wrap. And don't worry, you don't need to talk too much. A lot of times people ask, "Are we gonna have any of the Bones on the show?" And the thing is, we kind of have. We had Busy Bone on. I did the interview with Busy Bone in the car. It's on our channel. It's been there for a while. There's not that many views on it, which is surprising.
Check it
So
out. It's a great interview.
if you wanted to see, yeah, if you
It's the
wanted to see
first.
Beyond the
It's the
Harmony
original
interview,
Beyond the Harmony.
Yeah. Misery.
yeah, absolutely. So if you guys if you haven't seen the Busy Bone interview, we have it. It's on our channel. So go back in our archives. Just click the videos tab or go to the playlists. Go to, I think it's under Syndication Sunday. You'll find that there's a 3-part series, and there's still a part 4 that we haven't released yet. And also, I just want to leave everybody with old school recommendations. If you haven't heard either DOC, No One Could Do It Better, that's a Ruthless Records album, or LL Cool J, Bigger and Deffer. I listened to both of these albums
Muted.
recently, and they if you're into mid-school hip hop, right before the Snoop era, both of these albums are killing it. The DOC album was produced by Dr. Dre, so that's going to be amazing. And obviously, LL Cool J, it's his second album, so check those out in your interim outside of your Bone listening. So
Unmuted.
I'll leave it at that. I thank all of you for tuning in and even coming over to this channel, this part 2 tonight. Amazing night. You guys are amazing. You guys are the best BTH fans out there. So I'll leave it at that. And thank you, Cecil West, for putting this whole thing together, working the boards in the background. And thank you to Ty Wise for being the new member of Beyond the Harmony. We're very glad to have you.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Cecil, I can't say enough about all you do. Keep it up. You're doing a great job. John, it was awesome being on with you. All you fans who stuck around, I don't know how many hours running we are, but everybody who stuck around in the chat, all the callers who called in, people still in the chat room commenting, you're the engine that makes us go. So I appreciate everybody.
Guys, once again, this is Beyond the Harmony. This was Thug Tuesday live with Souljah Boy. My name is Cecil West with the one and only
On Lippy.
And the brand new Facts Don't Lie host,
Ty, the wise one, wise. So be on the lookout. We'll have a new video coming out soon to update everybody.
Now, I want to thank you guys for tuning in with us all night. Until next time, this is Beyond the Harmony, beyondtheharmony.com, and we are out of here. Phoenix rising. It is that time. Take us home, girl.
Beyond the harmony for the fans, we celebrate. Uploading new videos every Thursday, so join us. Beyond the harmony for the fans, we celebrate. Uploading new videos every Thursday, so join us. Beyond the harmony for the fans, we celebrate. Uploading new